Hey friends, it's always really hard to know how to start a video, like how you address people. It's very awkward. I sit here for like 5 minutes ago. What's the first thing I'm going to say? But um, I'm straight to the point. Mental illness. I've had a person comment on a video that I put up. A good friend of mine talking about a perspective of mental illness, which I thought was a perfect segue to start talking about that. And just briefly, like I said, I don't want to keep these long. It's just thoughts that I want to get out of my head that have helped me get through some stuff. And whether whether you've been through like a major trauma, whether it's like injury or illness, something that has an emotion driven behind it, there's two ways, I guess, that you would naturally deal with it. One way is obviously dealing with the, whatever the moment is itself, like whatever the tragedy is or the trauma is or whatever stress you're going through, and it can be as minor as major as you like. Everybody's situation is different, and the hardest moment in your life is your hard moment. It doesn't mean you have to compare it to someone else's journey that might have been through something worse. It's just that there's people have turning points in their life where they might go downhill mentally and not know how to deal with things. And a massive aspect of it, two massive aspects of it, is obviously the moment that it's happening and dealing with it and what emotions come up at that moment. And then the other part of it is, I guess, how you were brought up and what you modeled as a child. I'll use myself as an example with my coping mechanism dealing with mental health and working on that side of things was I knew immediately when I was about to go through a huge challenge in my life that I had to get my head in the right space. And I knew that the way that I dealt with my stress and anxiety prior to going through something major, and then the way I was dealing with it at the time, had a lot to do with my upbringing, my childhood. Not that I had like a super bad upbringing in childhood. It wasn't, it was, quite normal compared to some, but there was emotional moments through it, parents splitting up and different things and bad sort of role models in my life, for example. And so I knew I had to sort of dig deep and figure out where my, I guess, emotional mechanisms came from for dealing with something like that, because I think that ultimately has a lot to deal with how you deal with your day-to-day life and how you deal with stresses and anxieties and things that go wrong. And that's sort of modeled from the people that you grew up with. So I sort of started an immediate process of hypnotherapy when I felt sick, and getting my mind in the right place and knowing how to deal with fear and anxiety. I work for a psychology company at the moment doing project management and business development. And the last couple of years, there's been over a 400% increase in people trying to access psychology services for mental health issues. Pandemic, obviously, is a really big one. People have thrown in there that the war in Ukraine is stressful for people, which it obviously is. But I think COVID's a bigger problem where we are. Then the other aspect is the recent floods as well. So the company I'm working for is about to offer a bunch of free psychology services for, dealing with the PTSD and different stresses and anxieties that come along with a crisis like that. But I personally, myself, dug deep down to figure out why I had the emotions and the coping mechanisms that I did while I was dealing through a tough time. Because there was a part of me that just knew, I'm like, I wasn't just born this way with this level of stress and anxiety. It sort of had to come from somewhere. So I got that figured out, and that's something I kind of dealt with through my whole process of keeping my stress and anxiety in the right place and knowing where it comes from, knowing how to deal with it. And I said this to a good friend the other day as well, like most of your stress and anxiety is you stressing about your stress and anxiety. So there's different layers to it. It's a bit like, and I use the analogy, when I started hypnotherapy, I said this to the hypnotherapist. I said, if I could use this as an analogy as to why people worry about the stress, or how to put it in perspective, how you stress about your stress, or get anxiety about your anxiety, and you're actually dealing with the original issue, is that if you're in the woods and a bear came up to your cabin and it got to the door, immediately you're thinking that bear's gonna break in here, it's gonna eat me, stressing out about it massively. Whereas in reality, 85% of the time, this is a psychology figure, that 85% of the time they know that whatever you stress and worry about doesn't actually ever eventuate. So something that you worry about 85% of the time will not happen. Now, I mean, bear might be a bad analogy because most of the time they probably do want to eat you, but just as an example, that bear doesn't necessarily want to eat you. So do you spend all your time worrying about trying to keep the bear out and push away your anxieties and your stresses, because that's like most of the battle, is trying to push that stuff away, and then you're stressing out about not wanting to be stressed and anxious and push it all away. Whereas if you unlock the door and you let the bear flow in, and the bear being your stress and anxiety and those emotions, and just let them flow through your mind and go, okay, this is interesting, this guy's walking around, and see what he wants. And most of the time he might just come in, walk around, grab a piece of meat that you're hanging in your cabin, and walk out again, and he's gone. And you've made a big deal out of nothing, basically. So there's very little reason to say stress at a situation when you don't know whether it's going to happen or whether it's not going to happen. And a part of what I wanted to add on to this is that I've been doing my own personal coaching lately. I've actually got myself a personal coach, which has helped me deal with my mindset and deal with these past issues and emotions I've had in the past, and just generally help me be a better and more confident person. It's just something I wanted to do, and I've just pulled the trigger on it, and it's helping me out a lot. And digging back into modeling what my personality is like, and why it is the way it is, and why I'm sort of inclined to be stressed and anxious like I was in the past, not so much now because I've worked a lot on it, was I didn't really have much memory of my childhood. A lot of the memories I had were from bad memories. And my dad's probably going to hate me saying this, but I got a lot of bad memories from my granddad, my father's father, because he wasn't the nicest individual when he was with us on this side of the planet. So I have a lot of just memories of the bad shit that happened. And now that I'm getting into this personal coaching, I'm starting to have breakthrough stuff come through where I'm figuring out a lot of my fears and terrors and these things come from interactions that I've had with him and other people along the way, and also sort of emotional stuff that's happened within my family. But what I found is really amazing is that since I've started to dive into, a couple of years ago, where my thoughts, feelings, and emotions come from, driving right back to when I was a kid, and how that was modeled for me, I'm starting to break through all that stuff and get rid of it, get rid of the stress, anxiety, and get rid of the worry, and ultimately start to improve my mental illness on a massive capacity. And that's come through a lot of work, a lot of self-work of me diving in, investigating, doing a lot of psychology sessions, after I went through a bit of trauma to work on that stuff. And now it never ends. It's a constant sort of growth for me in my future, is that now I've got the personal coach, and now I'm working on that side of it. And then there's another level to that, which I won't go into right now, which I'm going to work towards as well for my own personal coaching. Thing I've found fascinating, working on this negative shit and clearing it out, I've started to remember positive things about my childhood, really positive things, positive people I had that passed away. And it's really funny because these are memories that have been gone from my head for many, 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 many years. And since I started to push away a lot of the bad stuff and a lot of the, emotional stuff from my childhood that had happened to me, I'm starting to remember all the positive things. And in remembering those positive things, I'm starting to pick up where the positive aspects of my personality come from. And it's generally making me a happier person. It's generally making me more grateful for who I am, being more confident in who I am, and also working forward with confidence and becoming the person I want to be, because it's unlocking happy memories with happy experiences of things that I've learned in a positive manner. So I'm just going to leave it there. It's just a thing sort of popped in my head about mental illness after I had someone comment on it. So we can work on that further down the line about giving more information about how I clear away a lot of that stuff. But if I could leave you with one thing with this video, if you have some type of mental illness, or you have some type of stress, anxiety, or even if it's a confidence issue, a self-confidence issue, like whatever it may be, investigate it, figure out where it comes from, dig right back to when you're a child, dig right back to when you have, think about maybe an experience you had when you were younger that you might relate to that feeling and emotion and where it started. And when you start to understand where it comes from, you can then start to let it go a lot easier, because rather than being like, this is just who I am, this is what I'm going to have to deal with, this is just me, I've just, it's ingrained in my head now, I've just learnt this and it's going to stick with me forever. But if you go back and do a bit of that sort of timeline therapy and figure those things out, like I said, which my personal coach has helped me out with a lot, I've started to unlock happy memories, and it's really improved my mental health. And I think now more than ever, like I said, with the 400% increase in people seeking services and people on waiting lists to seek out services, is that just investigate any way you can why you think the way you do, try and figure it out, try and solve those problems, try and clear those bad balances and find the good ones. And you'll start to see that each day improves very slightly, and you will start to build coping mechanisms to, stop worrying about things and stop, thinking negatively rather than positively. All right, I'll leave it there. You enjoy the rest of your day, guys, and I'll talk to you later.